Welcome to the District 32 Senate Candidate Virtual Town Hall. My name is Malcolm Chapman, and I partnered with Elevate Rapid City to be the moderator of today's event. We are excited that you chose to be a part of this afternoon session as we invite local legislative candidates to share their platforms, their ideas, and their story. In these uncertain times, public meetings and traditional campaign events are difficult to facilitate. So we hope these webinars can help serve as the public's opportunity to hear from candidates themselves. Today, we have joining us in the race for District 32 Senate is Helene Duhamel, Republican running for District 32 Senate, and Michael Calabrese, Democrat running for District 32 House. As a reminder, Helene and Michael will be on the November 3rd ballot for the general election. Just before we get started, I'd just like to take a moment just to say that I hope and I wish that everyone out here who's participating in this or listening or hearing our voice is safe and healthy, and just continue to take care of yourself during these uncertain times. Just a brief moment about my background. Again, I said my name is Malcolm Chapman. I'm a longtime Rapid City resident, former elected official at the city level, a former Marine enlisted and Marine officer. I travel the country doing public speaking and facilitating and hosting meetings, and I'm just happy to be here today moderating this session. I'd like now to set the stage for our town hall. We are first going to introduce each candidate in alphabetical order by last name, and each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. As the candidates run through their introductions, the audience is encouraged to submit questions through the question and answer feature found on your screen. Once introductions are finished, I will begin to share questions that are received from the audience through the Q&A feature. Each candidate will have the chance to respond. Each candidate has 2 minutes to provide their answer before we move to the next candidate. We will then rotate who has the next chance to speak first, and again, based on alphabetical order, but with 2, we'll just go back and forth. We have the ability to export all questions that are submitted through the Q&A. So if your specific question is not read aloud, we encourage the candidates to reach out after the webinar and address your question directly. We will do our best to ask as many questions as the time limit allows. We will conclude once the stream of audience questions expires or we reach the time limit. There are 2 questions we sent the candidates ahead of time to prepare. We will cover these topics if they're not prompted by an audience question. We will conclude promptly at 5 p.m. to be respectful of everyone's schedule. Finally, I want to set a few guidelines. As a reminder, only questions received through the Q&A feature will be submitted to me as the moderator to ask the candidates. We will not address questions sent through the chat feature. The moderator will then strictly enforce the time limits, and I will hold up a red card when the candidate has 30 seconds left. After 2 minutes, the candidate will be muted so that they can move on to the next candidates or the next question. Most importantly, we ask that you treat candidates and other webinar attendees with respect. If you abuse the Zoom chat feature in an inappropriate or derogatory manner, we reserve the right to dismiss you from the Zoom webinar. And with that, let's get started. Michael, can you start us off with your introduction, please?
All right, thank you, Malcolm, and thank you to Elevate Rapid City for putting on this event. You know, obviously with the challenges of the current pandemic, this is a great forum to engage and interact with members of the community and really speak directly to them in a way that we may otherwise be unable to. A little bit about myself. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to working class individuals. My parents were young parents, and my mother, while she attained her degree, my father didn't have that opportunity because he had to work to support a family. And really that is the attitude that's been instilled in me since I was young, just that drive to succeed no matter what, no matter the obstacles. My parents worked very hard to provide me with opportunities in education to position me where I am now, that I can hopefully represent the district in the state Senate. So it's something, that drive that constantly inspires me. and really makes me want to take on this challenge. My educational background, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and studied business administration, specialized in marketing, and came out of college right at the last economic crisis, and was fortunate enough to find employment and maximize that opportunity that was provided to me. I managed a multi-million-dollar self-storage facility in Colorado for 5 years. And it was at that point that I decided, with my wife, that we wanted to start something new, to drive to succeed on our own. And so we started a business here in Rapid City. We didn't know anybody in the city, didn't have deep roots here, but knew that it was a place that we wanted to live and start a business, hopefully start a family eventually, but build our lives. We've chosen to be here because it's a great place to live, and I am running because I want to make this place a better place to live. My wife and I own Black Hills Vinyl right in the heart of District 32. My wife is an amazing person who runs our small business, and that's facilitated me to strike out in another venture. I work for a local software company, Property Mill, in the business development division, and it's probably a familiar name to Elevate Rapid City. We started in the Ascent Technology Center, and I've been fortunate enough to see growth and see the potential of the business community here. Personally, my hobbies include, I'm an avid disc golfer, used to be the president of the Black Hills Disc Golf Club. I'm also a member of the Parks and Recreations Advisory Board. And in my time there, I've advocated for a better park system, better opportunities to make living in Rapid City more enjoyable. Most recently, we opened a new disc golf course, and I'm proud to say I participated in designing that and worked hand in hand with the Parks Department to make that come to fruition. And like I said, my goal is I live, I work, I build a business here within District 32, and I think that positions me uniquely to represent the district in the state Senate.
Michael, thank you. Helene. Helene, you must be on mute. We can't hear you.
Me either.
You're good now.
I'm good.
Yes,
Okay. Is that okay?
it is. And your 5 minutes will start now.
Okay, thank you. I thank Elevate Rapid City for this wonderful opportunity, and all the folks who are on the Zoom meeting. I'm a 5th generation South Dakotan. I grew up and still live in District 32. I left for college. I went to Stanford University, and I spent my junior year in Italy. I thought I wanted to be a foreign correspondent, but the one thing I learned, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Not only did I want to return to the United States, I wanted to return to South Dakota. And basically, I've been here ever since. The Duhamels were French fur trappers from Canada, moved into ranching and then retail. We had the Duhamel Trading Post and the world's largest saddle maker at the time. My namesake, Helen Duhamel, my grandmother, bought into radio and started television in western South Dakota, the panhandle of Nebraska, and eastern Wyoming. I loved working in that family business for 35 years. I did it all in the newsroom, a one-man band, shot, wrote, and edited all my video. I was assignment editor, producer, anchor, health reporter. I even did the weather the summer before Mike Modrick moved to Rapid City. I served on numerous boards. I was a public advocate, volunteer, honorary commander at Ellsworth Air Force Base for the 28th Bomb Wing, also for the Maintenance Squadron. I poured my heart and soul into the KOTA Care and Share food drive, and we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the needy in the Black Hills area. When the market in the television business started to consolidate, 3 years ago, I left for the Pennington County Sheriff's Office, and here's where I am, and I love it here. It feels like a new level of community service. I'm working with people who run towards danger, people who are there to keep us safe. I'm on the front lines with them in the fight on the meth epidemic in our community and strategies to safely reduce our jail population. It's really exciting stuff. Care Campus came online since I've been here. My most important job, I'm a wife of the same man for 32 years. I love my husband dearly, and I have 3 wonderful, successful kids. Those are my most important jobs. Last summer, legislators started reaching out to me about the open Senate seat. And it took a while for it all to come together. And once I had the sheriff's blessing, I threw my hat in the ring. I submitted a resume, went through the interview cycle, and was just thrilled to be appointed to that seat. And I thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for having that, given me that wonderful opportunity. I am still a political novice. I have much to learn, but I bring my experience as a reporter, a good listener. I can hear all sides of an issue. I'm not an ideologue. I don't have a stand on every issue just yet, but generally I look at issues through the lens of smaller government, less regulation, local control, and the Republican platform. And I'm looking for those big issues that will make South Dakota a better place to live, run a business, and raise families. I was appointed to the Health and Human Services Committee and the Local Government Committee, really good fits. My 25 years as a health reporter and my work right now in the county on mental health issues. And working as a county employee, the Local Government Committee, I had a lot of people that I could turn to for help. And yet it was a challenge to hold down a really full-time demanding job while in the legislature. My husband and I own a small business, and I do all the books and payroll, et cetera. So that's another little side business. There were long, hard weeks during the legislative session, a real balancing act, but I loved it, really making a difference in my community, a whole new level of service. And I hope voters will allow me to return to the state capitol in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you both for those introductions. I'm going to ask you to expand just a little bit on them and answer the first question. And Helene, we'll start with you. How has your prior experience, private sector or otherwise, prepared you to serve in the state Senate? And now in these answers, you have 2 minutes.
Well, kind of went through the prior experience. I think coming to the legislature as a journalist is a very unique thing. You sit right in the middle from the beginning. I worked really hard to stay impartial. And so when you come and face an issue, you take the time to get educated. You talk to people on all sides of an issue, and you try to come to the best decision for the people of the district and West River and South Dakota. I think that served me well. Working in a family business and running a business, I also understand what it takes to balance the books and financial statements and pay off loans and all that. So I think that is an added benefit. I worked in the community so many years for so many organizations, and I think that also gives me that perspective. I was on the board that started the Journey Museum, and so I think it's wonderful to invest in our history. The Convention and Visitors Bureau Board, United Way Chairman. I mean, I just could go on and on, but I have been in this community and very involved in this community from the very beginning. And I hope that resume is that type of experience is what people want in Pierre. It seemed like a really good fit. I fit in well. I have much to learn. People helped me a lot, but it was a great experience.
Thank you, Helene. Michael, the same question. Would you like for me to read it again?
If you would, please.
Sure. How has your prior experience, private sector or otherwise, prepared you to serve in the state Senate?
So I would definitely want to echo what Helene said. I mean, running a small business is a huge, huge challenge. I started as a very green 29-year-old and maybe didn't know getting into it what exactly was to come, but my wife and I have worked very hard to build a successful business. It's been a challenge at times. Balancing budgets is hard. Making tough decisions about the future are, that's a difficult thing to do. And, I've been able to navigate that within that position. And but again, I know the struggles of a small business person. I know trying to make sure you take care of your employees, trying to make sure that for us as our sole income, trying to afford healthcare here in South Dakota, that was a personal struggle that I can certainly relate to other small business owners in the district, other constituents. It's a tough situation out there. I have deep relationships with many small business owners within the district, within the community. I love to listen to them, understand what the challenges are. I am invested in this community, and I think that experience in the past, as well as my current employment, understanding how to navigate challenging negotiations. In sales, it's a cutthroat world, and making deals happen can be a challenge, but I'm very much prepared to work for the constituents in District 32.
Michael, thank you. Michael, we'll start this round with the question for you first. It appears that the state budget will be reduced. Would you cut straight across the board or make targeted cuts?
It's no doubt that, especially with the current pandemic situation and the loss of tax revenue, that there is the potential that cuts may need to be made. I certainly won't advocate for across the board cuts. There are sensitive areas of the economy that need to be treated that way and need to be handled differently. Cuts to education and cuts to healthcare in this time are going to damage our opportunities in the future. And so I would not advocate for an across the board cut. I think you have to go line by line in the budget and figure out where those cuts are best applied and where continuing at the current levels is the best way forward for the community and for South Dakota.
Thank you. Helene, same question.
We're right in the middle of the COVID crisis. I don't think it's clear that there will have to be cuts just yet. We were given $1.2 billion from the federal government, and on a daily basis, we're reaching out to our federal delegation, asking for the ability to use that for revenue replacement. And that could go a long way to fill the gap. If we can't do that, just like in any budget, on your home front or anywhere else, you have your needs and your wants. And we'll deal with those needs before any wants. But I think we've also potentially could get really creative on how we use that COVID money. At this time, when people are at home and sheltering in place and potentially out of work, why not use that time to maybe take courses? And maybe you think that your job as a waitress won't be there when you come back. So maybe with some of that COVID money, we pay for start your education to get into nursing or to become a bookkeeper. Maybe students need laptops or need internet at their homes. Maybe we use that COVID money in this unique time of online learning. I think we can potentially be very creative if we have to in using that money. I'm hoping that the federal government will allow states that have had good balanced budgets and worked hard to be a lean operating machine to not then be penalized when COVID strikes and we have to come up with revenue replacement.
Thank you, Helene. The next question will start with you, Helene. It's relative to the discussion of strategies to handle issues such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think expansion of Medicare and Medicaid could happen in South Dakota?
Right now, I can't imagine that we would want to add another program. Medicaid was created same time, 1965 Great Society. And that bill created Medicare. Medicare available to anyone over the age of 65, regardless of financial means. Medicaid run as a state-federal partnership, traditionally been for those who were deemed unable to care for themselves. And that would be poor children, pregnant mothers, the disabled. Most states did not provide the Medicaid insurance to healthy, able-bodied adults without children. So it just depends on how you look at it. Is health insurance an entitlement, or is it a safety net vision? And I guess it depends on how you look at that. Obamacare did change a lot of that in many states. South Dakota was not one of those states that expanded Medicaid. I do think that if we have to go that route, it would be hard in this COVID environment when we don't have state money to spend. But maybe there are creative ways to ask for personal responsibility and some personal involvement of people, whether it's savings accounts and deductibles, and they have to be more important ways that they're spending their money for health. So I don't have all the answers, but I think these are good things to be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, would you want me to read the question again?
Yes, please.
So it's relative to the discussion of strategies to handle issues such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think expansion of Medicare and Medicaid could happen in South Dakota?
Well, I appreciate the question. I think this is a tough challenge ahead of us. It's really the COVID-19 crisis has exposed some of the downfalls of our healthcare system. Obviously, employer-based healthcare with the unemployed at this point. COBRA may not be an option. It may not be financially affordable or viable for somebody. We need to have a safety net for those that are the working poor, the low income, maybe not quite at the poverty line, but those that need health care. In the context of the inalienable rights that we have given us in the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you're not healthy, if you can't get well, if you can't afford to see a doctor, those rights are not truly available to you. And so I think that Medicaid and Medicare expansion should and could happen here. And they are certainly things that I would advocate for.
Thank you. And we'll start this question with you, Michael. How would you represent marginalized populations in your district, like the LGBTQIA+ community?
Well, I can certainly say that I would be an ally for the LGBTQ community. To this point, my wife and I have hosted Black Hills Pride events in our store. We are constantly trying to be allies to that community. And I would certainly be an advocate for them in the state Senate. Too often representation is very one-sided, and South Dakota is no exception. Our legislature is very one-sided, and I think that shows in some of the legislation they bring forward in the context of things like bathroom bills and other things that are not constructive for the community or the business environment here. And on top of that, it's a human rights issue. It's something that we're marginalizing members of our community. So again, I would be an ally to that community and an advocate in the government for them.
Thank you, Michael. Helene.
I sat on the Health and Human Services Committee, and we killed this bill, the so-called transgender bill. I sat in on all the testimony. I talked to people on all sides of this issue. I read the literature. I spoke with well-respected pediatricians in Rapid City and other doctors. And personally, I wouldn't want any child to have any elective procedure or drug that would have lifelong consequences. But I didn't think that had anything to do with ideology. I didn't think it was a conservative or a liberal issue. And I really struggled to see it as a South Dakota issue where we had a big problem. We would be the first state in the nation that would have enacted such legislation. And frankly, No doctor does any procedure on any minor child without the parent's consent. This is parents' rights, and it's a very slippery slope, and this was changing legislation. When it was first introduced, it would have been a felony for a doctor to do any of these procedures or treatment on a transgender child under the age of 18. It moved to a misdemeanor under the age of 16. By the time it got to my committee, it changed medical malpractice laws in the 30s that a child could look back and say that they didn't like their treatment. The government does mandate a lot of rules to protect children, vaccinating, seatbelts, prohibiting underage drinking and driving. But this went after one group, not all children. So I did not support it, and I stand by that. I think we legislate for every person in South Dakota. We don't ever target one particular group.
Thank you. Our next question will start with you, Helene. What ideas do you have other than low taxes to attract businesses to our state?
I think right now in the area of economic development, we can look to the School of Mines, our engineers, efforts to keep them here. Engineers are really by default, they're just problem solvers. And these are the people that we want and need to keep here. Sanford Underground Lab, anything we can do to pull more scientists to this area and the support for that team, that is real economic growth. I look at the tourism industry and the efforts we continue to make on those shoulder seasons to attract more people. And even now in the COVID environment, potentially we say, hey, this is a place you can come where social distancing comes naturally. And there are lots of attractions where you can stay in your car and drive through parks. I think that the B-21 Raider is a huge opportunity for us. If all those contractors can locate around Ellsworth Air Force Base, there's real potential growth there. I think low taxes certainly is one thing that is attractive to people and why they want to come to this state. But I think that all these things, along with a really robust educational system, we have great quality of life. I think all of those make South Dakota really attractive and a great reason to come and locate and do business here.
Thank you. Michael, would you like for me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What ideas do you have other than low taxes to attract businesses to our state?
Well, low taxes certainly helps. I'd be lying if I said that I could have done my small business, created a retail store in California. You know, the lack of a corporate and income tax here was very appealing to me personally. While I have this very drab background behind me right now, out of the corner of my eye, I can see the corner of East Boulevard and Main Street where the Ascent Innovation Technology building is going up. It's a skeleton now, but I look forward to seeing what greatness comes out of that. I think by investing in businesses in the means of low interest loans, economic incentives, there are many levers that the state government can pull to attract businesses to this community. Having a great livable community, we, from the Parks and Recreation Board, we have one of the most amazing park systems for a community of our size. You walk down the creek path, and it's amazing what what's just a floodplain and a destruction area it was turned into. It's an amazing amenity that this community has. And I think building the downtown businesses, there's a lot of vacancy now, and the current crisis, I have some fear that some businesses may not be able to operate going forward. And so I think building the downtown area, which is the heart of District 32, is incredibly important, and incentivizing people to build in the community is going to set us up for success in the future.
Michael, thank you. We'll come right back to you with our next question. What do you see as the best process to stabilize the big three in our state budget and still support all the other needs of the state? For those of you who do not know, the big three refers to teacher pay, centers of Medicare and Medicaid services, and state employees?
Well, I think they're probably referred to as the big three, not only because of the size of the budget, but because of their importance as well. I think those items are hugely important to our community. Teacher pay is a big thing. We need to have great schools if we're going to attract businesses to locate here or relocate here. The recent bond issue put to the voters was, a means of levying, property tax, raising property taxes, and I don't know that that's necessarily the way to fund education. We do have a constitutional amendment on the ballot that helps to fund education and pay for schools. Public education is huge and hugely important to our community. And so Constitutional Amendment A is a great way to, generate revenues and put those tax dollars to use funding schools.
Thank you. Helene, same question. Would you like for me to read it again?
Please.
What do you see as the best process to stabilize the big three in our state budget and still support all the other needs in the state? And again, for those of you who do not know, the big three refers to teacher pay, centers of Medicare and Medicaid services, and state employees.
Personally, I think the best way is to grow our economy. Put as much focus as we can on any way to jumpstart the economy. And I thought we did that this year with some of our extra spending. We looked at projects where public-private partnerships, and we could kickstart an area, move into a new area. We had School of Mines working with SDSU on slash piles and working on ways to even creative ways to start new businesses. I think that we carefully can use what resources we have to try to grow the economy. I also want to point out that when you talk about those big three, 50 cents on every tax dollar that we bring into the state of South Dakota right now goes to education. Another 35 cents would be that taking care of people. So roughly you're talking for 84 cents on every dollar that we take in. We don't have an income tax. This is sales tax, video lottery, some use taxes, or use fees, Medicaid, social services, state institution. That's a lot. So I'm hoping the best way is to grow the economy. At some point, who knows, we may have to take a closer look at the education funding formula or the regental system and look at changes. But right now, the COVID environment may have changed everything, but I do think that we can really work hard and should work hard and put all our minds together and figure out how to grow our economy.
You're still muted, Malcolm.
Thank you, Michael. We'll start with you, Helene, for this question. Why are you the best candidate for this position in the state legislature, and what differentiates you as a leader in our community?
Well, I come to this job from a lot of different angles. I've been an award-winning journalist and really worked hard to be fair and impartial. And I think that served me well and was a very rare thing in peer. It was especially helpful on tough, divisive issues. I was part of a family business for 3 decades. I managed a staff of about 30 when I was news director of Dakota Territory News. I galvanized a team of volunteers when I ran the Dakota Care and Share food drive, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and church members and regular volunteers in every community in the Black Hills. So I am well used to all the things that come with business and with volunteerism and motivating people. My husband and I currently own and operate a small business, pretty handy with QuickBooks and Rent Manager. I do payroll, quarterly payments, financial statements. Sitting Bull Crystal Caverns in my family was one of the very early tourist attractions in our state. And I also now have the government and the law enforcement perspective. And we right now are on the front lines of the COVID pandemic. We don't have the luxury to work from home or shelter in place. The job here goes on no matter how bad it gets. Deputies, correctional officers, those who serve the homeless and the addicted population at our care campus. I am a longtime community spokesperson. I'm a volunteer. I'm a board member of numerous agencies. I've been very active in my church. I'm a parent, well-educated, committed, and I have the desire and interest to run. And I hope people will agree with me that I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Helene. Michael, the same question. Why are you the best candidate for this position in the state legislature? And what differentiates you as a leader in this community?
Well, I would say that I'm the best candidate because we live in a representative democracy. And I think I wholly represent the district and the folks in the district. I'm uniquely positioned with the trifecta of living, being employed, as well as operating a small business within District 32. That is my home base of operations, as well as the place I spend the most of my time. I think I'm uniquely positioned to lead because I bring a new perspective. I've lived many places and I've chosen to make Rapid City my home. I want to make it a better place for all that live here and all that may potentially live here. And I think that I can bring a perspective to the government that maybe isn't there and maybe is lacking. I appreciate Helene's service and willingness to I guess serve as appointed. But I think the folks of District 32 deserve a choice, and I hope to present myself as an alternative, and hopefully that they'll accept me as the best alternative in this race.
Michael, thank you. We've talked quite a bit about COVID. I have one last question on COVID regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. As a state legislator, what role will you take in leading the Rapid City and larger South Dakota community through a period of repair and regrowth from the effects of the pandemic, economic development, public health, and state fiscal policy? And Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, it's unquestionable the impact this crisis has had on our business community, on economic development. We see the unemployment numbers skyrocketing, and we really haven't seen the full effect of this crisis yet. When the time comes, I think we'll need to be very creative in seeking solutions to make sure that the business community here continues to grow, that businesses aren't lost, and that we continue to make Rapid City and South Dakota an appealing place to live. And so I'm wanting to go to Pierre and represent District 32 because I want to advocate for the business community and for the residents of Rapid City. And that's exactly what I'll do if I'm elected to State Senate.
Michael, thank you. Helene, same question. Would you like for me to read it again?
Please.
So regarding the pandemic, as a state legislator, what role will you take in leading the Rapid City and larger South Dakota community through a period of repair and regrowth from the effects of the pandemic, economic development, public health, and state fiscal policy?
Well, I can speak from experience already. Kevin Beshara, the owner of Colonial House, called me as soon as Rapid City closed restaurants. And he called and he said that he had access to food that had already been ordered, and he wondered why he couldn't sell ground beef, flour, yeast, things that you couldn't see across the street in Safeway when there was no ground beef. So he came to me and said, what can you do? I tried to do a Facebook sale, And I put it online, and the health department called me and said, hey, you can't do that. You're a restaurant. You can't be a wholesaler. You can't be like a grocery store. So I called the governor, and I called the Department of Health, and I was able to work with him to make that happen. And so now he has to make food labels, but he can sell bulk product that frankly was going to waste. And he could sell it potentially even cheaper than at the grocery store, especially when we have a meat crisis. I look at that as solving problems. I'm a good communicator, and I think I can help on the health front and getting the word out. We're working on a back to normal plan since South Dakota never closed everything. Looked for the local people to make the best decision on the local level, and keeping track of the hospitalizations and the different drug trials and the vaccines. I think I'm ready to go, and with the COVID, with my feet running.
Helene, thank you. And it's time now to conclude our time together, but we'll give you one final opportunity for 1 minute closing comment from both of you. And Helene, we'll start with you.
Thank you again for this opportunity. Now more than ever, we need quality people to be running for the South Dakota Legislature. They need to be informed, caring, committed, strong on business, and strong on public safety. People who can get to peer and deal with the situation at hand. I am so proud of the 100% rating from Elevate Rapid City as a business champion. That's one of the proudest things I am after the session. We need to be alert, on our toes, smart about what we do, wise during this COVID crisis. I want to be part of the solution, and I hope you agree that my resume makes me well suited to continue to represent you. I ask for your vote in the fall.
Helene, thank you. And Michael, a 1 minute closing statement.
I just want to echo, thank you for putting this together again. It's a great opportunity to reach community members and speak directly to them. I want to represent South Dakota District 32 because I will be an independent voice for Rapid Cityans. Again, I draw back. I'm uniquely positioned as somebody who lives, works, and owns a business within the district. I will advocate for the district, and I hope to represent it in the fall. And if you like what you hear, I'd love you to go to michael4sd.com. I'm a Prince fan, so gotta stick with the terminology there.
Well, thank you both for your time today and sharing your ideas and perspectives with those that are listening and participating today. And good luck to both of you. On behalf of myself and Elevate Rapid City, we thank the audience for the time they spent hearing District 32 Senate candidates. We are also very grateful for the candidates themselves for participating and sharing perspectives with us today. Please keep in mind the date of November 3rd when the general election will be held. If you have any questions about voting or about the elections, please reach out to Elevate. Keep an eye out for the rest of the legislative candidate town halls. Our next session will be on Friday, the 8th of May, starting at 3 o'clock for District 33 House candidates, and again at 4:15 for District 33 Senate candidates. At that time, so far, we've had David Johnson, Ryan Ryder, and Melanie Toro have confirmed their participation for Friday. Make sure you register for the events, and you can find the links in the chat box. Thank you so much for participating, and everyone be safe.